Wait a minute, when was the last time I did a ranking video? Let's change that, shall we? Ever since the dawn of Generation 3, every Pokemon has had these things called abilities. Some of them are good, and some of them are truant. But today we're going to go over what I think are the best abilities in the series. Keep in mind that this list is my opinion, and if you don't agree with it, that's okay.
YouTubers only say that when they know they're about to give a hot take. I bet you did something stupid like put Levitate at the bottom of the list. Levitate didn't even make top 20, did it? Oh my god.
Please subscribe, I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers. Okay, let's get this tier list started with number 20, Speed Boost. The name says it all. At the end of every turn, the user gets a boost in speed. Couple this with a Pokemon that can boost its stats with moves like Calm Mind or Swords Dance, and you've got one of the greatest sweepers of all time. Heck, for generations, this ability was the reason Blaziken and Mega Blaziken were really good back in the Gen 6 days. And in Gen 9 it made Espathra broken too. In fact, the only reason not every Pokemon with this ability is broken is because they're either too frail or have terrible typings. Number 19, No Guard. No Guard is essentially just aimbot but for Pokemon. Having this ability means you no longer have to worry about any of your moves missing because they are guaranteed to hit. Even those risky one-hit KO moves like Sheer Cold and Fissure.
I wish my ability was no guard. Then I wouldn't have to worry about missing high jump kick.
Skill issue anyways, No Guard is a very helpful ability on some Pokemon like Lycanroc and Mega Pidgeot, but it's not really seen that often because of 1, its low distribution, and 2, some of the Pokemon who have access to this ability also have access to other good abilities like Machamp with Guts and Golurk with Iron Fist. Number 18, Regenerator. This ability is why battling Pokemon like Alomomola, Slowking, and Amoonguss can be so goddamn annoying. Just by merely swapping out, the Pokemon restores 33% of its health. There's been so many times I thought I would get the killing blow on one of these three, but they swapped out and healed. And since swapping out your Pokemon always happens at the beginning of the turn, you can guarantee surviving and getting a good chunk of health back. Number 17, Tinted Lens. If a Pokemon with this ability uses a not very effective move, that move's damage is doubled. So regardless of whether or not they resist the move, the opponent will still take full damage from your attacks. Except for moves that are ×4 resisted, like hitting Aggron with Air Slash for example, they get their damage raised to ×2 resisted. Mostly bug types get this ability, which is great because bug type moves are resisted by 7 types. That's almost half the types in the game. The best Pokemon with this ability is no doubt Lokix. But imagine if it was given to some heavy hitting bug types like Heracross or Kleavor. Number 16, Stamina. When any Pokemon with the ability Stamina gets hit by a damaging move, whether it was physical or not, they get a boost in their defense stat. When this ability was first introduced, only Mudstell had the ability, which was fine. It has a very low speed stat and common weaknesses, but then the Indigo Disc DLC dropped and gave us Archaludon, who also gets Stamina, and this ability made fighting Archaludon impossible. And Stamina gets even more broken when you combine it with the move Body Press, a move that uses the user's defense stat to calculate damage instead of the user's attack stat. Number 15, Multiscale. At full health, any Pokemon with this ability takes half damage from damaging moves. Not some of them, all of them. This made Dragonite one of the greatest Dragon types hands down back when Gen 5 first came out. Before then, you could probably one-shot Dragonite with any decent Ice type move. But with Multiscale, it could confidently stay in on almost any Pokemon, use Dragon Dance once or twice, and do incredible damage. Maybe even sweep the opponent's whole team. Lugia gets the ability too, but fuck Lugia.
The fuck did Lugia ever do to you?
It existed. Number 14, Serene Grace. This ability doubles the chances of secondary effects activating. For example, Air Slash and Iron Head only have a 30% chance of flinching the opponent, but with the ability Serene Grace, that 30% gets doubled to a whopping 60. This makes Pokemon like Togekiss, my favorite Pokemon, and Jirachi incredibly annoying to deal with. They can paralyze you first with Thunder Wave, then outspeed and hit you with a move that has a 60% chance to make you flinch. Combine that with a 30% chance of getting fully paralyzed, and you have a 90% chance to not attack at all. It's just as scummy as it sounds. Number 13, Magic Guard. Pokemon with the ability Magic Guard can only take damage from damaging moves. So no Stealth Rock chip damage, no poison or burn status damage, no nothing. What's even cooler is that if you give a Magic Guard user a Life Orb, they won't take Life Orb damage after attacking, which is crazy. The only Pokemon to ever really bear fruit with this ability are Alakazam, Clefable, and Reuniclus. And sometimes Clefable doesn't even run Magic Guard, it'll run Unaware instead. More on that later.
Spoilers!
Shut up. Number 12 is a tie for both Mold Breaker and Neutralizing Gas. I put them both here because even though they don't both do the same thing, they do very similar things. Mold Breaker Pokemon can damage other Pokemon even if their ability should stop them. So if a Pokemon with Mold Breaker uses Earth Power on a Pokemon with Levitate, like Azelf, they will ignore Levitate and hit the target. As for the ability Neutralizing Gas, it just removes the abilities of everyone on the field. They both have the main purpose of ignoring abilities, which is broken because some Pokemon wouldn't be nearly as good without their abilities. Looking at you, Superior. Number 11, Moody. At the end of every turn, a Pokemon with Moody gets a random stat raised by 2 stages, but also gets a stat lowered by 1 stage. If you let a Pokemon with Moody stay on the field long enough to get stat boost in the right stats, it can become straight up impossible to win in certain situations. Luckily, every Pokemon that gets this ability is competitively trash, but I've seen the terrifying things these Pokemon can do if not taken seriously, and the outcome is unsettling. Number 10, it's a tie for both Protean and Libero because they both do the same thing. The user's type changes to the same type as the move it uses, so if Greninja uses Gunk Shot, it'll turn into a Poison type. Simple as that. The ability to constantly change your type and in turn change what moves you're weak to can be incredibly broken. In Generation 9, the ability was nerfed so that you can only change your type once without needing to swap out, but it's still a useful ability nonetheless. There are 3 starter Pokemon that have used this ability with amazing success. Kecleon gets Protean too, but it's Kecleon. Number 9, Unaware. The ability is simple. Pokemon with Unaware completely ignore all of the opponent's stat changes, whether they are positive or negative. So if your opponent just wasted a bunch of turns boosting their stats, you can send in a Pokemon with Unaware and completely ignore all those boosts. And the best part is that Pokemon with Unaware can still boost their own stats without the opponent ignoring them. It's why Skeledirge and Dondozo were used a lot when Scarlet and Violet first came out. They could ignore their opponent's stat changes and boost their own stats at the same time. Number 8 is another tied spot for Moxie and Soulheart because they both basically do the same thing. Moxie boosts the Pokemon's physical attack after knocking out a Pokemon, and Soulheart boosts the Pokemon's special attack after knocking out a Pokemon. These abilities are catastrophic on Pokemon like Salamence and Magearna. They already have moves that can boost their speed, so all it can take is getting just 1 KO on the opponent's side, and that could lead to you sweeping their whole team. Number 7, Shadow Tag. Shadow Tag prevents the opponent's Pokemon from switching out. It also prevents wild Pokemon from fleeing. Being able to trap any Pokemon you want for free is amazing. Well, if you use a pivoting move like Flip Turn or Volt Switch, you can still swap out that way. And starting in Generation 6, Ghost types can no longer be trapped by Shadow Tag, but you can still trap most of the Pokemon you fight in battle. And if you trap a Pokemon that has moves you resist, you're basically free to set up as much as you like. Number 6, Contrary. Contrary reverses all stat changes the Pokemon will receive. Now I know some of you might think this ability is garbage because if you try to set up with a move like Swords Dance, your attack will go down instead of up. But no, there are actually a lot of uses to having Contrary. Intimidate raises your attack stat instead of lowering it, and moves that lower the user's stats like Superpower and Overheat will actually raise them instead. The only Pokemon that have used this ability to great success are Superior and Enamorus, with the other 4 being not as fortunate. Number 5, Prankster. Pokemon with Prankster gain priority on all status moves they use. You could use this ability for giving an opponent a status condition, setting up hazards, putting up screens, boosting your stats, and it's all guaranteed to happen before your opponent can move, regardless of their speed stat. Grimmsnarl is without a doubt the most popular Prankster Pokemon because it can set up screens, paralyze the opponent with Thunder Wave, and pivot out of battle while lowering the opponent's stats with Parting Shot.
That is, without a doubt, the scummiest moveset I ever heard.
Indeed, I'm actually glad people don't use this set anymore. Number 4, the Big Bad Intimidate finally shows its spot on the list. What can I say that hasn't already been said by someone else? This is literally the most iconic ability of all time next to Levitate. We all know what it does. It was so good that it has been nerfed time and time again by the developers.
It's one of those abilities you hate going against, but would love to have on your team, just like Iron Barbs or Rough Skin. Speaking of which, I can't wait to see where you put Rough Skin on the list.
Haha, me neither.
It's not even on the list, is it?
Well, I can only pick 20 abilities, man.
You've gotta be fucking kidding me.
Number 3 is our last tied spot on the list, and it goes to Huge Power and Pure Power, both abilities that double a Pokemon's attack stat. You would think that there would be a negative side with this ability like, oh, it doubles your attack stat but halves your speed, but no, that's just it. And just as you would expect, every Pokemon to have been blessed with this ability has had amazing results at some point in Pokemon history. Azumarill, Mega Mawile, the Medichams, even Diggersby, their early game rabbit Pokemon, was doing really good back in Gen 6. Now I know there are some other good attack raising abilities out there like Tough Claws and Supreme Overlord, but those abilities are basically just huge power, but worse when you really think about it. Number 2, Magic Bounce. Not only do status moves fail on Pokemon with the ability Magic Bounce, said status moves are bounced back to the opponent, so it's basically just Uno Reverse card, the ability. This is why you don't see any other status abilities on this list like Clear Body or even Good as Gold. In the end, they are basically just inferior versions of Magic Bounce. I just wish more Pokemon had access to this ability that weren't Megas. And now for the honorable mentions, and those are Infiltrator, Ripen, Illusion, Technician, Skill Link, and Levitate, and Rough Skin.
Thank you.
Now the bottom 15 entries on this list were not ordered. Only the top 5 entries were ordered because they were a cut above the rest. I've already shown you numbers 5 through 2, so the best Pokemon ability, in my opinion, is without a doubt, Wonder Guard. Pokemon with this ability are immune to all damaging moves except for super effective ones. It is just as broken as it sounds. So broken in fact they have only given this ability to one Pokemon, and the one Pokemon that gets it only has 1 HP. Now Shedinja itself is nothing to worry about, just make sure you have a Pokemon move that it's weak to and you'll be fine. And people won't tell you this, but Magic Guard does not block damage from status conditions, hazards, or weather conditions, and damaging it through one of those methods bypasses Focus Sash too, which makes it the best way to handle Shedinja. Yeah, despite having only 1 HP, Focus Sash still works on Shedinja. If it still has that 1 hit point, then it is technically still at full health after all. And that's about it for this tier list. Were there any abilities that you think should have made the list? Let me know in the comments below.
I know I definitely had some disagreements.
If you actually stayed this far into the video, then thank you so much for watching, and please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more Pokemon content. This is Jay signing off. Don't forget to eat your vegetables.
Wait a sec. I just realized something. Trace wasn't on the list either.
Well, who gives a fuck about Trace?
I do.